Talk to me. WSRadio.com.
Welcome back to The Coaching Show with your host, Master Certified Coach Christopher McAuliffe.
Well, dear listener, I promised that I love the work of both of my guests today, and it is still true. Eric Edmeades was somebody that I met and was exposed to through the Conversation Among Masters conference. You should check them out at conversationamongmasters.com. And, I don't know about you, but when a handsome sort of, little too smooth guy gets up in front of me, I start to be skeptical. Well, Eric won me over. Not only was he walking his talk, but his work is extraordinary. His background is no less extraordinary. From being a serial entrepreneur, someone who has done everything from movie special effects, worked in that, to a wireless integration company, a background in more than 20 years of business and sales and marketing, and he's got an extraordinary message for all of us, especially those of us struggling in startup businesses. Please welcome to our microphones for the first time, Eric Edmeades. Hello, sir.
Good morning.
Hey, look around outside. Where do you find yourself today?
I am, I'm not even, oh, you know what? I'm in Tracy, California.
A beautiful place to get out immediately.
Yeah, I know. I was driving from LA up to San Francisco last night, and I thought, no, I'm going to stop. It occurs to me, though, however, that I must be near the fictitious town of Charming, California. So I'll keep an eye out for motorcycle gangs.
All right, good. All right, sir. Let's talk. So most of our listeners have some role where they're a coach or consultant, and they're dealing with, their own startup challenges. What do you think are big mistakes that we're making already before we even get started? Like, what are we already doing wrong?
Well, I think that's a great question, and it's a question that's true of just about anyone starting a business. One of the issues is that when somebody starts a coaching practice, they don't really view it as a business. They view it as a practice, and I think it's important to view it as a business. And the challenge in viewing it as a practice is that, a lot of people start businesses around their own core skill sets, which means that they will be, kind of sentenced really to always being the provider of the business, and so always working in the business rather than having an opportunity to work on the business.
That's right, because after all, it's usually pay per hour or pay per service kind of thing. What have you got for us about that? Because it feels like we don't have any choice.
Well, I think part of the challenge is for people is this kind of a fundamental belief structure that abundance and financial success and stuff comes as a result of hard work, and I think that belief stems from the fact that probably 90% of the activities that people have to do in a day feels like hard work. The truth, though, is that if you can find a way to set your life up so that you are getting paid for doing the 10% of things that you love every day, then things change a great deal. And so, in my case, I really enjoy going out and speaking, coaching, and mentoring and that kind of stuff. And so I recognize that puts me in that same practitioner role. And so in order to make sure that I'm not trapped in that role, I'm taking a look at, we're doing things like product creation and certification of coaches that can take our intellectual property and go out there and take the word out to people. And I don't necessarily have to be directly involved in the process.
Okay, and is that something we should all be doing? We should all start looking for products and ways to leverage our time?
Well, I think so. I think that if it really, I suppose it to a large degree, it depends on a person's goals. I view, at least in a business coaching world, that coaches fall into two categories. There are coaches and there are mentors. And to me, the difference, just for semantics purposes, is that a coach is somebody who is a professional coach who hasn't necessarily walked the path before. They might be a business coach because they're good at coaching, but maybe they've never owned a business. And then there's somebody who's gone out and they've owned a business or two or three businesses. And then in our terminology, we refer to that person as a mentor rather than a coach because they're speaking from practical physical experience. Now, if somebody is in that role of mentorship, then maybe they're just doing it for fun. Maybe it doesn't need to be focused on as a business. I used to do business coaching for the Prince's Trust in England, and so that I wasn't even charging for my time, let alone approaching it like a company. Mm-hmm. For most, however, who really are in this game to build it as a business, consider it in these terms. What happens if you get sick? What happens if a family member has an emergency? What happens if you one day want to stop? Have you built any equity? Have you created something that can be transferred or sold to another party? And my view is that every day that we're working, we're looking at what we're creating in terms of our remuneration and our future. What are we building here? So yes, I think it's a good idea to think in terms of building a business rather than only building a practice.
Gotcha. And what would you have us do then, given that we're mostly dealing with practice?
Well, I think one of the core things is to let go of control, let go of the need for certainty. This is something we're probably telling all our clients all the time anyway, right? So,
right.
Maybe what we could do is practice a lot more of the things that we're out there telling people. And one of those things is to let go of the need for certainty, because that is generally the biggest obstacle to creating a team and to delegating and to handing over of responsibility of things. These days there's just such a tremendous opportunity for outsourcing. I look, any given day. I was in Washington, D.C. yesterday, L.A. yesterday morning. I'm now in San Francisco shortly. Mm-hmm. On Monday, I'll be in Oslo. I'll be there for 5 days. Then I'll be in Helsinki and then Poland. And, so building a team is no longer this thing of having to have an office and building a team around you. There are phenomenal outsourcing capabilities where you can have very talented, very solid people doing the things that you need to get done. And so in order for us to take that step forward, and I'm in the same boat quite often still on a daily basis, is that we have to take a look at a given task and say, am I really the best person for this? And even if I am, is it really the best use of my time relative to other things that I could be doing for my business? And at that point, I'm constantly, in a big way, I think it's really important to have your to-do list, but I think you should have your not-to-do list. And this is stuff that ultimately you either don't enjoy a great deal, or it's stuff that you could pay somebody else a lot less than you're worth on an hourly basis to get done for you. And at that stage, you begin to focus a lot more of your business effort on your talents and on your passions.
It's really great. So here's what I've learned so far. Time for money is our framework, and we should look beyond it immediately. Look for other ways to generate business past what you can do one-on-one or one-on-several with clients. Secondly, get a mentor. Third, let go of control. Look for team and hand over or outsource things that are not either you're the best person to do it or it's the best use of your time. Create a to-do list as we all do, but also a not-to-do list. Anything I missed? Anything else that us startup people should take on or stop?
No, I think that, obviously there's a lot more. We're only here for, half an hour today.
Yeah.
But no, I think that handles it. And one comment on it is that, I spent a year touring around, speaking about business and this sort of thing, touring with Tony Robbins. And one day I was standing in front of an audience and I was talking about this very topic. And then one of the people, asked a question and they said, well, I'm a dentist. That's what I do is dentistry. And so how could I ever make this work? And that reminded me of I lived in the west of England for a long time, and I had a dentist there, and they had 40 dentists operating out of one building. I dug into what was happening there. It was one couple that found that they were really, really good at marketing, and most dentists really aren't. And so they found they were turning business away. Because they had gotten so good at what they were doing and they'd become so good at marketing, they were turning business away, and yet other dentists were struggling. So they started inviting those dentists into their practice. And, the economics are interesting. At the end of the day, they make about a 25% margin on the time of the dentists that are working in their office. With 40 dentists, though, that means they replaced their own income several times. And so I used this example, and the person said, yeah, I still don't want to run a business. And I said, I want you to consider something. Who do you think spends more time on the administration of their business, you as a sole practitioner or the Houstons that have people running their business for them? And then the penny dropped. They suddenly got that what entrepreneurship is about is 2 or 3 years of working harder than other people are willing to work so that you can live a life that nobody else gets to live.
Beautifully said. Let's talk about your website and what's available for people on it. Eric Edmeades, not exactly a household name yet, but let's spell it out for people. It's E-R-I-C, Eric, and Edmeades is spelled E-D-M-E-A-D-E-S. Is that accurate?
Yes.
EricEdmeades.com. That's EricEdmeades.com. What do we get if we go to that website?
Well, frankly, at that website, you're going to get some information about me and some background. I don't use it a lot for there's not a lot of product or event information on there. But what I did do for the show is, I'm doing a big tour of Northern Europe in a couple of weeks. and they've asked me to do a live training on business freedom, on how to set up a business that does not own you. And it's really just for those clients, but I thought what I'll do is set it up so that any of your listeners who want to tune in with us, they can. So it's super easy to get to because it's just ttl.net.
That's easy, ttl.net. That's terrific. Thank you so much for that gift, that generous gift. Let's go the other way. When we're looking at clients, and I should warn you, I've got about a minute in this segment for the question and the answer. When we're looking at clients, what should we be looking at? Many of us are so excited to be talking to a human being that might pay us money that we just accept anybody that happens by.
No, we should absolutely be taking a look at very specific target markets. We cannot be all things to all people.
Great. What are some ways that we can sort of suss out this is my client, or no, I should pass this one on?
Well, I think one way to do this is to take a look at who you consider right now to be your very best clients, both in terms of the enjoyment of the time you spend with them and in terms of the economic reward you get from that time, and create a profile based on that. And then you work toward targeting your marketing to attract more people like that. Also, get referrals from those people because those people tend to know more people like those people.
Beautiful and very timely. This is the amazing Eric Edmeades. If you haven't learned a lot already, well, he'll be coming back with us in our next segment. When we do come back, I want to talk about how we should focus not on the 3%, but on the 97% and more that I've learned from you already. Again, go to Eric's website at EricEdmeades.com. That's EricEdmeades.com. When we come back, more from Tracy, California with the extraordinary Eric Edmeades. You're listening to The Coaching Show. Stay with us right here on WSRadio, the worldwide leader in Internet talk.
Talk to me. WSRadio.com.
Welcome back to The Coaching Show with your host, Master Certified Coach Christopher McCullough.
Continuing our conversation now with the extraordinary Eric Edmeades. He is a sales and marketing business genius, consultant and coach to more people than we could ever list. As we've learned out today, he's formerly the business coach for the Prince's Trust in England. You can find out more by going to his website, Eric Edmeades. That's EricEdmeades.com. Eric, one of the things I learned from you when I had the opportunity to be with you in person is that most of us are selling to 3%, our marketing or selling our services to 3% of the people and ignoring the other 97%. Will you tell people what I mean?
Yeah, so if you consider that, you know, at some stage maybe you've been at an airport trying to get Wi-Fi, and there's a little survey that you have to complete in order to get your free Wi-Fi. And they ask you things like when you're going to buy your next computer or what have you. Surveys like that are done all the time to take the temperature of, you know, of the economy and to take the temperature of consumers. And they've determined that roughly at any point in time, roughly 3% of the market is buying something. You know, if you're selling microwaves, 3% of people are out there buying them. And, you know, computers, cars, whatever it is. And when I first heard this, I heard it from a good friend of mine, Chet Holmes, and I started asking audiences, how many of you are going to buy a new car? 3%. How many are buying a new house? 3%. It was just this weird number. And why that's a fascinating number is that the vast majority of people have really set their marketing up, their advertising and their revenue generation activities to get their fair share of that 3%, the low-hanging fruit. And I think there are a number of challenges with doing that. The one being is that the 3% are, you know, they're already price shopping you and looking at your competitors and so on. And then there's this other group, this other, you know, this much larger group of people that maybe haven't heard of you or maybe are disinterested in your product or service or are even opposed to it. And to me, that's a much more exciting market. And there's a number of reasons. One being is, well, there's more of them. And the other one is that quite often it's when you can take somebody who was disinterested or opposed to what you do, what you're selling, what you're offering, and that you can, when you can swing those people over, they are much more inclined to become raving fan promoters, clients. You know, that they'll go out and tell people about you.
Great. So how do we get to those people? I mean, that seems like the next obvious question, right?
Well, you remember, of course, at CAM, I was speaking about a marketing methodology that I've developed called Inception Marketing. And Inception Marketing is really based upon the idea that you really want somebody to arrive at the conclusion that they want to buy your product or service as though it was their own idea. Now, your listeners are going to understand this better than just anyone else that I share this with, because, you see, in a coaching or therapeutic environment, you may quite often know the answer for your client. You know the breakthrough they need to have. You know the little thing that, in theory, if you were to tell it to them, that all the self-esteem issues they had would be suddenly released. The challenge is that if you tell them, then they will intellectualize the answer.
Correct.
And they won't have the breakthrough.
Exactly right.
Whereas if you subtly move them to the realization through the right questioning and the right inceptive stories, then they arrive at that realization on their own. And when they do it on their own, they have a sense of ownership. And so their buying decision becomes so much easier for them. And that's really a key aspect in trying to get to those other 97%, is recognizing that an overt selling action is a pushing action, and when you push, there is resistance. You know, Alcoholics Anonymous always says we use attraction rather than promotion. When you use attraction-based marketing and inceptive stories, people desire doing business with you rather than being pushed into it.
Beautifully said. Can you give us an example?
Well, I think I gave you the example at CAM of my little Bushman story, and the short version is I asked the audience how many people are in the audience are going to buy cars and houses. It's all 3%, and then I said how many people are going to buy new running shoes? 3%. Once I know that, then I go into a story about, an experience I had doing some research for a health and nutrition book I'm working on, and where I was with Bushmen in Africa and went hunting with them and realized I was making too much noise, so I need to model them. And as I modeled them and became more quiet, I also recognized that my knee wasn't hurting me. And I continue with this story, and it's entertaining, and obviously, it's pretty interesting because it's out in the middle of nowhere in Africa, and that kind of stuff's intriguing to people. And the realization I have at the end or during this time with the Bushmen is that really, barefoot running probably makes a great deal of sense. And so then I talk a little bit about the structures of barefoot running and so forth. And at the end of that talk, which was almost 95% about my time with the Bushmen and 5% on a few statistics about what happens when you run with padded running shoes rather than barefoot running shoes, I then asked the audience, how many of you at this stage are thinking that it's time to buy new running shoes? And it is routinely 40 to 80% of the audience rather than 3%. Mm-hmm. That's what we want.
So it's really getting some sort of a compelling story or engagement to have people consider what they weren't considering before. Because if you look for who might be interested in a coach, for example, your assessment is that there may be 3% of the population looking right now. And if we confine ourselves to those, we're going to be in trouble because we're going to compete with everyone else for those 3%. We're going to be competing on price more than anything because we're going to be seen as a commodity.
Exactly. You may have heard of the book Blue Ocean Strategies, a fabulous book on marketing, and I often felt it was a fabulous book on marketing if you are a major company with lots of capital. The reality is that using Inception Marketing is like a blue ocean strategy for the rest of us. And the metaphor of the blue oceans is that most people market in the red blood-turned waters of competition, and that there's this huge, vast blue ocean of no competition. And that ocean is the ocean that I think is a lot more fun to fish in. And there's lots of reasons. One of them is that those people are not so price sensitive, and also they're more likely to be loyal to you because you were the one that woke them up. In other words, somebody who's always been a Mac user does not spend their time converting other people to become Mac users because, frankly, they're just not interested. Mm-hmm. People who have converted from Windows to Mac become lunatics. Right. They walk up to their friends and go, oh, my God, you're still using a PC? Well, those are the clients you want, the ones that have made the pendulum shift from not interested to raving fan.
Beautiful. All right. What else? You're a guy with an almost unending supply of knowledge and experience and opportunities for us. When I think about my own business, I think one of the things that I'd love to do is attract more clients. You spoke of attraction earlier. What are some tips? What are some things that you would have me do if we were working together to say, hey, McAuliffe, here's how you get people interested in your coaching services?
All right, let me start with a shameless plug. Our book, Inception Marketing, is coming out later this year, and anybody who wants to get a pre-release copy of it before it comes out can go to inceptionmarketing.com. And obviously we can have a much longer conversation in the book than we can on this show. to really answer your question right now, I think one of the core things that's so important, particularly in your industry, is living the word of what you're teaching and what you're practicing. The fact is that one of the reasons that I get so many requests for coaching and mentoring, particularly in the areas of business, health, and relationships, is that people view that I'm living in a manner that they would like to enjoy their life. And I believe that if you're going to be in the coaching and mentoring industry, that you are holding yourself to a higher standard. And that means that, when you're in a store and you get bad service from somebody, you could react like everybody else and be grumpy or what have you. Or you could be playful and enjoy the moment and recognize that incident is actually just going to be another great story for one of your coaching clients. And then people around you begin to see you as a more joyful and more enjoyable person. And as a result of that, they think, all right, that's attractive to me. I would like to do business with that person. Now, another component to this is I'd like you to imagine for a minute two people. One person is spending like 90% of their day doing stuff they don't like, administrative stuff, spreadsheets, accounts. They don't enjoy it, let's say. I know there are people out there that do. I'm just using this example of people who don't. Now you have a second person, and this person absolutely passionately enjoys 99% of what they do on a daily basis. Mm-hmm. Which one do you want to do business with?
The one having fun.
Exactly. And that's the other reason we go back to my original conversation on business freedom. When we teach our business freedom workshops, one of the key things that we're doing for people is allowing them to structure their life and structure their business so that a much higher percentage of their day is spent on enjoyable activities and a much lower percentage of their day is spent on drudgery. And as a consequence of that, whether you're a coach, mentor, or an owner of a huge manufacturing company, I don't really care. The end result is that if you set your life up that way, you will have more fun. You will be more attractive, and as a result, it'll be easier to hire people. It'll be easier to, raise capital and run your business and live a great life.
And what a beautiful note for us to end on. Eric Edmeades, thank you for joining us on your pit stop between L.A. and San Francisco and in all the other places you go to. Go immediately to ericedmeades.com and find out more about him and to inceptionmarketing.com and pre-order that extraordinary book. Well, that's another edition of The Coaching Show. We'll talk to you next week.